everyone. Just want to wish you a Merry Christmas to all of you and all the very best for 2026 that is starting.
The internet is on fire right now, and if you haven't heard what just went down in Bangkok, you need to drop everything because this story has it all. Triumph, betrayal, international drama, and the king of clay absolutely losing his mind in the most epic way possible. Rafael Nadal, the man who has spent 2 decades maintaining ice-cold composure on the biggest stages in tennis, just threw all of that out the window to defend a young woman he calls his tennis daughter. And honestly, the fury in his words could melt the very clay courts he built his empire on. This was supposed to be a fairy tale ending. A young champion standing on the podium, gold medal gleaming around her neck, tears of joy streaming down her face as her national anthem played. Alex had just delivered the performance of her life at the 33rd SEA Games in Thailand, defeating the hometown favorite in a match so intense it had spectators holding their breath until the final point. She had trained for this moment her entire life, sacrificing everything in normal teenager experiences to chase a dream that seemed impossible. She left her family, her friends, her home, and moved halfway across the world to train at the most brutal tennis academy on the planet, the RAFA Nadal Academy in Mallorca. And it all paid off when she fired that backhand winner down the line, collapsing to her knees in exhaustion and disbelief as the crowd fell silent. But here's where the story takes a dark, twisted turn. Instead of celebration and respect, Alex was immediately met with a tidal wave of hatred so vicious, so coordinated, and so deeply personal that it shocked even the most seasoned observers of sports controversy. Within hours of her victory, extremist fans flooded social media with accusations that her win was fake, that she had only succeeded because of her connection to Rafael Nadal, that the match was rigged, that she was a product of favoritism and privilege rather than talent and hard work. They attacked her appearance, her background, her family, and her character. They called her a fraud, a puppet, a manufactured champion who didn't deserve to breathe the same air as their beloved Thai star. The comments were relentless, cruel, and designed to destroy not just her reputation, but her spirit. What these keyboard warriors didn't anticipate was that they weren't just attacking some random tennis player. They were attacking someone who had been forged in the fires of one of the toughest training environments in sports, someone who had been mentored by a man who treats his students like family, someone who had earned every single drop of sweat equity she had invested. And when Rafael Nadal caught wind of what was happening, something inside him snapped. The usually diplomatic, measured legend who chooses his words carefully and avoids controversy like the plague decided that enough was enough. He stepped into the arena, not with a racket this time, but with words sharp enough to cut through all the noise and nonsense. Let's rewind for a moment and understand exactly what led to this powder keg explosion. The 33rd SEA Games in Thailand were always going to be intense. Regional pride was on the line, and the host nation had poured everything into preparing their athletes for glory on home soil. The women's singles tennis final became the centerpiece event, a clash between Maninkaya Sawanki, Thailand's golden girl playing in front of a stadium packed with thousands of screaming supporters, and Alex, the young champion who had traveled a long road to get to this moment. The atmosphere was electric, but also deeply hostile toward Alex from the opening serve. Every mistake she made was cheered. Every winner she hit was met with stony silence or outright boos. The pressure would have crushed most players, but Alex dug deep, channeling everything she had learned from years of brutal training sessions under the Mallorcan sun. The match itself was a war of attrition. Both players fought for every single point, their bodies pushed to the absolute limit in the humid Thai heat. There were controversial line calls that went against Alex, delays that disrupted her rhythm, and the constant psychological warfare of playing against not just one opponent, but an entire nation. But champions are defined by how they respond when everything is stacked against them, and Alex responded with the kind of mental toughness that can't be taught in a textbook. She stayed focused, she stayed composed, and when it mattered most, she delivered. That final backhand winner wasn't just a shot, it was a statement. It said that no amount of pressure, no hostile environment, and no biased crowd could stop her from claiming what she had earned. The moment should have been pure magic. Alex fell to the court in tears, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she had accomplished. She was ending a drought for her nation, cementing her place in history, and proving that all those sacrifices had been worth it. She clutched her flag with trembling hands, stood on the podium with pride, and let the weight of the gold medal settle around her neck. For a brief, shining moment, everything was perfect. And then the internet decided to ruin everything. What started as grumbling from disappointed Thai fans quickly morphed into something far more sinister. Extremist groups, furious that their champion had fallen, needed someone to blame, and they chose Alex as their target. The narrative they constructed was as ugly as it was absurd. Alex hadn't won because she was talented or hardworking. She had won because she was connected to Rafael Nadal. The academy gave her special treatment. The officials favored her because of who her coach was. The entire tournament was rigged to give her a victory she didn't deserve. It was all propaganda, all smoke and mirrors, all fake. The accusations spread like wildfire across social media platforms. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and local Thai forums were flooded with hateful comments. People who had never watched a single minute of the match were suddenly experts on why Alex's victory was illegitimate. They dissected every point, claiming phantom fouls and imaginary favoritism. They posted side-by-side comparisons of her physique versus other players, suggesting she was somehow less deserving because she didn't fit their image of what a champion should look like. They dug into her background, looking for anything they could weaponize. Some even went as far as sending direct threats and harassment to her personal accounts. This wasn't just criticism or disappointment. This was a coordinated campaign of destruction aimed at a young woman whose only crime was being better than their favorite on that particular day. And it was working. Reports began to surface that Alex had gone radio silent, deleting comments, limiting who could message her, and retreating from the public eye. Friends and family were worried. This kind of toxicity has broken athletes before, driving them into depression, anxiety, and even early retirement. The sports world has seen it too many times. A promising talent crushed under the weight of social media hate. But then, something shifted. News of the attacks reached Mallorca, specifically the sprawling complex of the RAFA Nadal Academy, where Alex had spent years transforming from a hopeful kid into a world-class competitor. And when Rafael Nadal learned what was happening to his student, to someone he considered family, the legendary calm that defined his career evaporated. Sources close to the academy described him as visibly shaken and deeply angry, emotions rarely seen from the man who built his reputation on grace under pressure. He had watched Alex grow up. He had seen her cry after brutal losses and drag herself back onto the court the next morning. He had pushed her to her limits and watched her push back. To him, she wasn't just another player passing through the academy. She was proof that hard work and dedication still mattered in a world increasingly obsessed with shortcuts and instant gratification. So Rafael Nadal did something he almost never does. He stepped directly into the controversy and issued a statement that was equal parts protective fury and disappointed disbelief. His words weren't filtered through a public relations team or softened for mass consumption. They were raw, personal, and devastatingly effective. Enough is enough. Please let her live in peace. The opening line was a plea and a warning rolled into one. Nadal wasn't asking politely. He was demanding that the harassment stop immediately. He went on to dismantle every single accusation with surgical precision. The idea that Alex's success was handed to her because of favoritism? Absurd. Nobody hits the ball for her when she's on the court. Nobody runs for her or thinks for her or suffers for her. She is alone out there, just like every other player, relying entirely on her own skill, preparation, and mental strength. He addressed the claim that training at his academy gave her an unfair advantage with a reality check that should have been obvious to anyone paying attention. Training at the Rafa Nadal Academy doesn't make tennis easier, it makes it harder. The expectations are higher, the scrutiny is more intense, and everyone wants to beat you specifically because of where you train. If anything, Alex had to work twice as hard to prove she belonged, to show that she wasn't just riding on someone else's coattails. And she did exactly that, over and over again, in countless matches and practice sessions that the public never saw. Nadal painted a vivid picture of who Alex really was behind the headlines and social media posts. A girl who left home as a young teenager, walking away from birthday parties and school dances and lazy summer afternoons with friends to pursue a dream that terrified her as much as it inspired her. She spent years grinding in the gym when no one was watching, hitting thousands of balls until her hands bled, running sprints until her legs gave out, pushing through injuries and setbacks and moments of crushing self-doubt. She missed family weddings and graduations and all the little moments that make life normal because she was chasing something extraordinary. And when she finally reached the mountaintop, when she finally earned that gold medal through sheer force of will, the world tried to take it away from her with lies and conspiracy theories. She is a champion not because of where she trains, but because of who she is, Nadal declared, and those words hit like a thunderclap. He was reminding everyone that facilities and coaches and training programs don't win matches. People do. Heart wins matches. Courage wins matches. The refusal to quit when everything hurts and nothing is going right wins matches. Alex had all of that in abundance, and to diminish her victory was to fundamentally misunderstand what it takes to succeed at the highest level of sport. His final words were a direct challenge to the trolls and haters. Respect that. Or say nothing. It was the verbal equivalent of a drop shot winner, perfectly placed and impossible to return. Rafael Nadal, one of the most respected figures in all of sports, had drawn a line in the sand and dared anyone to cross it. The sports world erupted in response. Fellow tennis players, coaches, journalists, and fans from around the globe immediately rallied behind Nadal's statement. The hashtag #StandWithAlex began trending worldwide within minutes, drowning out the hate with an avalanche of support. People shared their own stories of overcoming adversity, of being doubted and dismissed, and having to prove themselves over and over again. Alex had unwittingly become a symbol of something larger than tennis. The idea that hard work and authenticity still matter in a world that often seems determined to tear down anyone who achieves something remarkable. But the question remained, how would Alex herself respond? Would she issue a tearful video explaining her side of the story? Would she write a lengthy statement addressing each accusation point by point? Would she retreat further into silence and let others fight her battles for her? The world waited, refreshing social media feeds obsessively, desperate to know how the young champion was processing this nightmare. Hours passed. The trolls kept typing, convinced they had won, that their campaign of harassment had successfully broken another victim. Nadal's defenders argued back and forth with the extremists in comment sections that devolved into chaos. And then, quietly, without fanfare or warning, a notification appeared on Alex's Instagram account. Not a photo of the medal or the podium or a defiant selfie. Just a simple black screen with white text. The internet stopped. Just completely froze for a moment as everyone processed what they had just read. Because in those 12 words, Alex had delivered a masterclass in dignified defiance. She wasn't going to engage with the trolls on their level, wasn't going to dignify their accusations with detailed rebuttals or emotional appeals. She was simply pointing to the one thing that couldn't be argued with, couldn't be spun or manipulated or reinterpreted, the scoreboard. Her racket had already told the truth on the court in Bangkok. It had spoken in winners down the line, and impossible gets in clutch serves under crushing pressure. The match was the truth. The gold medal was the truth. Everything else was just noise. The second part of her statement was equally powerful, that my voice does not need to. She was refusing to play their game, refusing to give the trolls the satisfaction of seeing her hurt or defensive or desperate to explain herself. Champions don't explain, they perform. Lions don't concern themselves with the opinions of sheep. Alex had already proven everything that mattered in the only arena where it actually counted, and she wasn't about to waste her breath trying to convince people who had already decided to hate her regardless of the facts. It was the kind of response that Rafael Nadal himself would have given, and the symmetry wasn't lost on anyone. The student had learned well from the master. She hadn't just absorbed his technical knowledge about forehands and footwork. She had internalized his philosophy about dignity, resilience, and letting your work speak for itself. In the face of coordinated hate, she had responded with grace and strength, refusing to be diminished by people who could never understand what it takes to be a champion. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. The Stand With Alex hashtag exploded even further, with celebrities, athletes from other sports, and millions of regular fans flooding social media with messages of support. Even reasonable Thai fans, embarrassed by the extremist behavior of their compatriots, joined the chorus defending Alex and condemning the harassment. Tennis analysts called it a defining moment in her young career, the kind of trial by fire that either breaks you or forges you into something stronger. Alex had clearly chosen to be forged. The broader conversation quickly shifted from whether Alex deserved her gold medal to the toxic culture of online sports fandom and the double standards female athletes face. When male champions win in hostile environments, they're celebrated as warriors who conquered adversity. When female champions do the same, they're accused of receiving special treatment or having things handed to them. The hypocrisy was glaring, and people were finally starting to talk about it openly. Meanwhile, the favoritism argument that had fueled so much of the initial backlash continued to crumble under scrutiny. Sports analysts broke down the match point by point, showing conclusively that Alex had won fair and square through superior shot-making and mental toughness. The controversial line calls that extremists claimed proved bias were reviewed and found to be correct. Tournament officials released statements confirming that all standard protocols were followed and that the result was beyond dispute. The conspiracy theory dissolved when confronted with actual facts. But of course, the people most invested in hating Alex weren't interested in facts. What's fascinating is how this entire scandal has actually elevated Alex's profile far beyond what a simple gold medal victory would have accomplished. Before Bangkok, she was known primarily within tennis circles as a promising talent from the Nadal Academy. Now, she's an international figure, someone who has been tested not just athletically but emotionally and mentally, and who emerged from that test stronger and more resolute. The attempt to tear her down has instead built her up, giving her a platform and a narrative that will follow her throughout her career. And let's talk about the relationship between RAFA and Alex for a moment, because it's at the heart of this entire story. Nadal has trained thousands of players at his academy over the years, but there are only a handful he speaks about with the kind of protective pride he showed in defending Alex. Their relationship goes beyond coach and student. It's more like mentor and protégé, or as many have described it, tennis father and tennis daughter. He sees in her the same qualities that defined his own legendary career: the willingness to suffer, the refusal to make excuses, the quiet dignity in victory and defeat. When he watches her play, he sees not just a talented athlete, but someone who embodies the values he has spent his entire life trying to represent. That's why his response to the attacks was so fierce and so personal. It wasn't just about defending a student's reputation. It was about protecting someone he cares deeply about from forces that had no interest in fairness or truth. Nadal has always been intensely private about his personal relationships, but in this moment, he made his feelings crystal clear: attack her, and you attack me. Diminish her accomplishments, and you diminish everything we stand for at the academy. It was a line in the sand drawn by one of the most powerful figures in tennis, and it immediately changed the entire dynamic of the controversy. The timing of all this is particularly significant because we're at a moment in sports where the mental health of athletes is finally being taken seriously. We've seen high-profile cases of champions stepping away from competition because the psychological toll became unbearable. The constant scrutiny, the social media hate, the impossible expectations, it all adds up, and it breaks people. What Rafael Nadal did was create a shield around Alex at a critical moment, giving her the space and support she needed to weather the storm without being destroyed by it. His intervention may very well have saved her career and her mental health. As we step back and look at the bigger picture, this story represents something important about the current state of sports and social media. The same platforms that allow fans to connect with athletes and celebrate their achievements also enable harassment and toxicity on a scale that would have been impossible 20 years ago. A handful of extremist fans can create the illusion of mass outrage, drowning out reasonable voices and making athletes feel isolated and attacked. The solution isn't to abandon social media entirely, but we desperately need better systems for protecting athletes from coordinated harassment campaigns that have nothing to do with legitimate criticism and everything to do with cruelty. Alex's gold medal victory will now forever be remembered not just for the quality of her tennis, but for the controversy that followed and how she handled it. In some ways, that's unfortunate. She deserves to have her athletic achievement stand on its own without being overshadowed by drama. But in other ways, it's fitting, because the way she responded to adversity tells us as much about her character as anything she did on the court. Champions aren't just people who win when everything goes right. They're people who refuse to break when everything goes wrong. Alex proved she's a champion twice over. Once in Bangkok when she won the gold, and again in the aftermath when she refused to let the haters define her story. The final chapter of this saga is still being written, but one thing is already clear. Alex emerged from this crucible stronger, wiser, and with an army of supporters she didn't have before. Rafael Nadal emerged as not just a legendary player, but as a legendary mentor, someone willing to put his reputation on the line to protect those he believes in. And the extremist trolls who thought they could tear down a young champion with lies and harassment, they accomplished the exact opposite, turning her into a global symbol of resilience and authenticity. So what do you think about all this chaos? Was Rafael Nadal right to go nuclear in defense of his student, or should he have stayed out of it and let Alex handle it herself? And what about that 12-word response? Was it the perfect power move, or should Alex have said more to directly address her critics? The comments section is waiting for your take on this absolute roller coaster of a story. Hit that like button if you're standing with Alex and think she earned every ounce of that gold medal through blood, sweat, and tears. Smash subscribe so you never miss the latest drama from the world of sports, because trust me, after this explosion, everyone's going to be watching what happens next. We're tracking every development, every twist, every moment of this incredible journey. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your opinions ready, because in the world of sports, the story is never really over. It just gets more interesting. Stay tuned.